really giving you the end. You'll be able to see me, right? Yeah? Well, it's just saying the same way you're doing it. It's just you have the keys to the well. On the different stuff. Folks, be ready. As soon as the colors are clear, they drop the orange flag and go. So be ready. How are you? Very good. You too. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll see you Monday. As soon as President Mason gets up here, we'll start.
Finally goes to meet her.
She's here though. She's here.
Good morning. Please join me in thanking our color guard and thanking our wonderful John Jay Choir. Under the direction of Professor Shepard, who, let's give him a big round of applause. You will hear him again later today. So welcome to our September 11th commemoration ceremony. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this important event, both in person and those of you who are joining us on live stream. And I want to acknowledge our students, faculty, staff, and alumni who graciously agreed to participate. And I also want to give a special thanks to Mindy Bockstein, who always courageously organizes all of our 9/11 commemoration events each year. So please join me in thanking Mindy for all of her work. I'd also like to extend my greatest gratitude to our frontline heroes in law enforcement, many of you who are here to join us today, in law enforcement, security, fire suppression, and emergency medical services. Your commitment to safety honors our nation's 9/11 heroes. So thank you to all of you. On September 11th, 2001, nearly 3,000 people died, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 police officers, 37 Port Authority officers, and countless civilians. Many of our students don't remember this tragic day, or some of you weren't even born yet. We had that discussion yesterday in the elevator with some of the students about how, what their understanding is of what happened. And last night I was at a 9/11 Memorial Foundation dinner, which is a fundraiser for the foundation that supports the families of 9/11 victims. And on my ride back, talking with the officer, public safety officer who's driving me back, he was 14 years old when it happened. And he talked to me about the impact that had on him. And I know that those of you who were not alive, it still had a huge impact on your lives and will continue to do so. And I'm glad that I'm at an institution that will never let us forget what happened on that day. And so while you may not have been alive to remember September 11th, you are still here to experience its impact. September 11th could be something you learned about in school, or the sights and sounds and smells of that day could be etched in the permanent memories of some people. And for those of you who are young, I hope that we keep that memory of that day alive for you. There's a vast array of experiences of people who were, what happened to people that day surrounding this senseless act. And there's a deep desire to continue to memorialize our fallen heroes, as we do here at John Jay. It's a reaffirmation of our commitment to serve the memory of the 67 members of the John Jay community who were lost on September 11th. And as you'll see later when we go to the memorial, it's something that we keep alive here every day at John Jay. They had families, some of whom's children are here as students at John Jay. They had dreams, and they came to John Jay to enhance their understanding of justice, equity, and leadership. And as I mentioned, some of the children of some of these alumni are part of our community. I want to share a story about NYPD officer Erin Coughlin, what she said about her father, who was NYPD Sergeant John Coughlin, a John Jay student who sacrificed his life to save civilians in the South Tower. She said that when they went into those buildings that day, they were grabbing people and helping them run away. It didn't matter what they looked like, what they believed in, or what political party they were in. They just knew that there were thousands of people in those buildings who had heartbeats, and they went in to get them out. That's the legacy of the 67 members of our community, the legacy of all the first responders who acted that day with such courage. Sergeant John Coughlin didn't come home that night to his wife and 3 young daughters. But years later, Erin, his oldest daughter, wears his badge number proudly while on duty with the NYPD. The late Desmond Tutu once said, "Hope is being able to see that there is light in spite of the darkness." And what we do here at John Jay every day through everybody in our community is we bring light in the midst of sometimes darkness. I can't imagine the darkness that Sergeant Coughlin's family felt after his death, but Erin found the light and carried on her father's legacy. Witnessing the towers crumble to the ground left emotional and physical scars for so many people here and many who will be joining us in speaking today. But we felt the light when people from around the globe offered to help our city. There was a sense of sadness when we read the names of the 67 fallen John Jay heroes each year, but there is also light, because here at John Jay there is a commitment to serve and to shine that light brightly. Our first responders and their families paid a heavy price on September 11th and in the aftermath, and we continue to lose people as a result of September 11th, so don't think the tragedy stopped that day. As a community, we will continue to applaud their service and draw upon their memories in the pursuit of a fairer, kinder, and safer society that we can all celebrate. Thank you for joining me today. And now I would like to be joined by our Foundation Trustee Board member, Cal Mathis, who is a double alumnus, and Student Body Council President, Sam Asensio. Oops, nope, that's later. But you, hold on. See, this is what happens when you all let me speak extemporaneously. I just went off script because I'm looking at our fabulous student body president and wanting to bring him up here. But, Jen, hold on. I do believe that, Cal, you are next. Oops, nope. I'm screwing up. Yes. And in case you're wondering, this is also an emotional day for me, and so it's hard. But Professor Kim Lau will now bring some reflections. Thank you.
This is called Before and After. September has always been one of my favorite times of year. The summer heat dissipates and back-to-school shopping promises an exciting academic year ahead. Nothing gets me jazzed like notebooks and pens, binders and highlighters. I've always been a nerd. In September 2001, I was a high school senior on Long Island. I was 17, getting ready to apply for college, and I had just bought my first car with my whole life savings. All I wanted were some fuzzy dice for the rearview mirror. On the morning of 9/11, I was zoning out in my AP government class, which I found so boring, when a classmate returned from the main office. "A plane hit the World Trade Center," he said. We looked at him blankly. Class continued. Before 9/11, I was a teenager, concerned only with playing soccer, getting good SAT scores, working at the local bookstore, and getting the heck out of my cloyingly small town. After 9/11, I grew up and entered the adult world. I was forced to face scary facts about reality and fears for the future. All my delusions of safety and seclusion shattered in that single day. 9/11 sliced my life in two, child before, adult after. Since then, 21 years have passed. If my memory of 9/11 were a child born that day, they would now be old enough to drink, to vote, to enroll in the military. My memory has changed too, evolved, faded, deepened. This brings me to the question of memorials. For as long as I've been a writing teacher, I've taught writing about memorials. My students address questions concerning the persistence of memory and the threat and solace of forgetting. We consider who should be memorialized and what memorials should be revised or reinvented. You might say I'm obsessed with the act of memorializing. Memorials are architectural repositories for our memories, places that offer us spaces to grieve, to remember, to let our memories evolve with time as the stone or bronze weathers, as oxidation blurs the sharp edges of letters, names etched in perpetuity. Why do we need memorials? So we don't forget, or to remind us why we need to remember? The first time I visited the 9/11 memorial was 4 years ago at night. The waterfalls cascaded into darkness, the pools creating a void that could hold all of these inexplicable losses. The names carved into the bronze panels around the pools are cut out from the metal, so the name itself is an absence, a void. Golden light pours through where someone's presence should have been, a soul fire extinguished too soon. When I think of the 9/11 memorial, I recall visiting that same patch of land 21 years ago, 2 months to the day after 9/11, Ground Zero. As I approached the site, I encountered a gigantic hole that was still smoking. The wreckage was still on fire 2 months later. It was like a gaping mouth with a tooth missing. I remember the acrid, bitter smell. These smells were harbingers of the deadly toxins that would sicken so many first responders who had come to save lives, extinguish fires, and clean up the site. We just didn't know how these fires would take their toll for years and decades to come. At 17, I wanted to fathom why this had happened, to learn about global politics. I wanted to educate myself about why terrorists had wanted to attack America and why our government had decided to invade Afghanistan. The night I went to Ground Zero, I attended a nearby candlelight vigil with a friend, and we prayed for peace. We put our bodies to work expressing our protest to the impending invasion of Afghanistan. With an impassioned but unsubstantial crowd, we walked from Battery Park up West Street along the Hudson River, singing and chanting, watching the stars come out over this resilient city. I was naive then. I believed that every small action had importance. I thought my words and actions mattered in the grand scheme of things. That sense of activism faded over time as adult life wore me down. I grew jaded, felt exhausted, and was tempted to surrender to apathy. But 21 years later, I see the wisdom of 17-year-old Kim. And every September, I'm inspired by the strong convictions and energy of my John Jay freshman writing students. Thinking back on that autumn that turned me into an adult, I still remember our clear hope for a bright future in the face of utter darkness. Our hope was a candle flame burning through the night. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wrote a short 4-page speech to give you guys today, but unfortunately, I'm not gonna go off of that speech because I feel that speech is not gonna do our memorial justice. I'm gonna speak from my accounts, and I'm gonna speak from the heart. I'm gonna date myself a little bit in how 9/11 affected me. It was September 11th, 2001, approximately 8:15 in the morning. The towers were struck. We didn't find out in high school. I was a sophomore at the time, like about a week and a half in. We didn't find out until a few minutes after when they said it. We couldn't believe that it happened, so everybody continued, but it got real. We heard the alarms in the school. It evacuated. The high school I went to was on 50th and 10th Avenue, so it wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. We got evacuated from the school. We all went home. We were trying to watch the news. It was everything was in a panic, and it was in chaos. And throughout that panic and chaos, all I could think about is, what can I do to help? During that time, New York City was in a divide. It was we felt it was us versus law enforcement and everything else. There was really no understanding. But September 11th did one thing. It did unite the city. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody wanted to help out. Everybody was supportive towards each other, and it unified the nation as well. But what it did for New Yorkers, it showed us what we could do, how we could serve. And in my limited capacity, all I could think about was, what can I do? How can I serve? How can I do something better? And it changed my whole perspective of what I wanted to do in life. Fast forward 3 years later, I joined the Marines. Countless combat deployments later, I felt that I served my country. I felt that I brought some justice for those lives that we lost. But that wasn't enough. I was like, I still need to continue serving. I still need to be a proud New Yorker. And I still need to do what I need to do, because I know that if at least one person that passed away would have survived, they would have volunteered and they would have been doing other things to help other New Yorkers grow and to get through the memorial. So as I continue to remember and to think back every year as I grieve for those lives that we lost, and as I see the impact that it still has on a lot of us, all I could say is that 9/11, it was a tragic incident, but the light that it brought, it showed us that us, as the United States, we don't waver. We're proud to be Americans. We're proud of our lifestyle. We're proud of our freedom. This is America. This is what we do. If we fall, we're going to get back up, and we're going to build, and we're going to be stronger. And we're never going to forget those lives that were sacrificed, those lives that were lost. We're never going to forget that. And we're always going to look forward towards the future to avoid situations like that from happening. And that is how 9/11 impacted me.
Good morning. Mr. Vargas, thank you for your service and your words. My name is Brian Kerr. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Affairs at the college. And yes, the sun is right in my eyes, so bear with me. It is our tradition to invite representatives of the John Jay College community to recite the names of those whom we lost on September 11th, 2001. They are administrators, faculty, students, and staff. As we read the names of our 67 fallen community members, a votive will be lit by current undergraduate and graduate students representing the diversity of our college. At the end of the ceremony, students will place origami cranes by the memorial. The cranes were gifted to us by Japanese school children on the 15th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Paper cranes were also made by alumna Melinda Yam to add to this collection. Following the September 11th, 2001, Japanese children hand-folded 1,000 paper cranes as a gift to New York City, based on the ancient legend that anyone who folds 1,000 paper cranes will be granted a wish. Their wish was for world peace. And I will begin by reading the names of our John Jay family who perished on 9/11. Ignatius Agdana, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council. Brian Ahern, FDNY. Gerard Barbera, FDNY. Frank Bonomo, FDNY. Michael Boyle, FDNY. Michael Brennan, FDNY. Patrick Brown, FDNY. Ronald Buca, FDNY. Michael Burke Jr., FDNY. Michael Camarada, FDNY. Michael Carroll, FDNY. Vernon Cherry, FDNY. Michael Clark, FDNY. John Collins, FDNY. And John Coughlin, NYPD.
James Coyle, FDNY. Robert Crawford, FDNY. Scott Davidson, FDNY. Dennis Devlin, FDNY. Jerome Dominguez, NYPD. Kevin Donnelly, FDNY. Stephen Driscoll, FDNY. Gerard Duffy, FDNY. Fanny Espinosa, Cantor Fitzgerald. Michael Esposito, FDNY. Robert Evans, FDNY. John Fanning, FDNY. Thomas Farino, FDNY. Terrence Farrell, FDNY. Andrew Fredericks, FDNY.
Thomas Gambino Jr., FDNY. Marlon Garcia, Marcia McLennan. Edward Garrity, FDNY. John Giordano, FDNY. Sean Hanley, FDNY. Terrence Hatton, FDNY. John Heffernan, FDNY. Ronnie Henderson, FDNY. Walter Hines, FDNY. Carl Joseph, FDNY. Michael Kiefer, FDNY. Thomas Kennedy, FDNY. Ronald Kerwin, FDNY. Joseph Levy, FDNY. Joseph Maloney, FDNY.
Peter Martin, FDNY. Michael Lyons, FDNY. Robert McMahon, FDNY. Charles Mills, the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. Robert Minera, FDNY. Dennis Mojica, FDNY. John Moran, FDNY.
Robert Nagel, FDNY. William O'Keefe, FDNY. Oreo Palmer, FDNY. Philip S. Petty, FDNY. Maria Ramirez, Langen Engineering and Environmental Services. Digna Rivera Constanza, Marsh and McLennan. Jacqueline P. Sanchez, Cantor Fitzgerald.
Leo Smith Jr., FDNY. Kevin Smith, FDNY. Walwyn Stewart, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Santos Valvatin, NYPD. John Vigiano, FDNY. Lawrence Regillo, FDNY. Edward White, FDNY.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alden Foster, and on September 11th, 2001, I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school. I was sitting in my social studies class when the first tower was hit, and I remember right away coming to my mind was my mother that actually worked in Lower Manhattan. I remember looking out my school window and seeing the smoke all the way from the Bronx in the sky. And I couldn't reach my mother until later on that afternoon, around 4 o'clock. And she finally told me that she was okay. She had to walk over the bridge to Brooklyn. I also, being an unpaid intern at the time in the New York City Police Department, I knew a lot of the people that I work with was actually responding to the World Trade Center that morning. One person was Captain Timothy Pearson, who's now retired from the NYPD. But he responded to the towers that day, and one of his cops that actually went inside the towers with him, John Perry, didn't make it out. Tim Pearson was trapped inside of the World Trade Center, and for minutes didn't know if he was going to make it out of the actual World Trade Center. Also, another close friend of mine was Detective Harry Valentine, someone that I work with in the police department, who died in May of 2018 from 9/11 related illnesses. So September 11th really plays a big part in my heart because a lot of the men and women of the New York City Police Department passed away during that day, but also later on, we're still experiencing a lot of illnesses still related to that awful day, which I think a lot of people don't realize that still people are suffering with many of those illnesses. So as a John Jay adjunct professor and a member of this John Jay community as an alumni as well, it's important that our students, faculty, and the entire community really keep in mind the legacy of the people that actually responded to September 11th, experienced that awful day, but also keep in mind the men and women and a lot of people, not just in the NYPD, all of those first responders that day that are still suffering from illnesses related to those recovery efforts. So thank you.
Thank you, Walton. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. Innocent lives lost, widespread fear, and great anxiety gripped our nation and city in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. Heightened concerns about future terrorist attacks were prevalent. At the time, we also shared grief and a spirit of unity. People supported professionals that tended to the affected, forensic specialists who looked for remains to bring closure to the families, and philanthropic services that assisted survivors, first responders, and family members of victims. People rallied around our military service members seeking justice against those responsible for the attacks. However, in the aftermath, we also witnessed distrust against communities and the enactment of restrictions on civil liberties. The public health and economic consequences of the attacks underscored disparities and generated discord. Thankfully, there have been no terrorist attacks on the scale of 9/11 in more than 2 decades. Many of us continue to work for global peace and understanding. I am proud to contribute to this effort thanks to the foundation I received at John Jay. Efforts to prevent and guard our country and city from future terrorist attacks shape our lives today. 9/11 transformed curriculum, scholarship, and practices in counterterrorism, security, and cybersecurity, and resulted in advancements in forensics, fire science, emergency management, and health, among other disciplines. Lessons from the catastrophe influence our experiences in societal institutions. While today I look back and pay tribute to those who lost their lives that day and 21 years later, including some of my colleagues, I also look at it with hope. My hope for a better and more inclusive society remains strong. It has inspired me and my wife to establish a scholarship in global security studies to enable traditionally underrepresented John Jay students to make a difference in security management and homeland security. Let this candle I light today shine a bright light for our future. May we see the day when a great peace will embrace the whole world. May we realize the day when people of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony. And may we experience every day the achievements of generations of John Jay students and alumni, safeguarding human rights and advancing justice. Thank you.
Listen, my son. I dream a world where man, no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world I dream, where black or white, whatever race you be, will know the bounties of the earth, and every man is free, where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy like a pearl attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream. My word, my word, my word.
I want to again thank Professor Shepard and the John Jay Singers for bringing us the music to honor this moment. Thank you again for your beautiful voices. We're so glad he's here. And I also want to acknowledge that this whole program is an orchestra that's finely tuned with some instruments like me that were out of tune. But I want to thank our conductor, Jennifer Lorenzo, for helping us make sure that we made it through the program in the way it was supposed to. So in tribute to our fallen heroes, I will now be joined by a member of our foundation board and alumnus that you heard from earlier, Cal Mathis, our student body president, Sam Asensio, and president of the John Jay Veterans Association, Adrian Stone. And we are going to lay a wreath at the memorial, and this will conclude our program. So thank you all for joining us in person and live stream. This is the first one we've been able to have since the pandemic hit, and it is so wonderful to be able to celebrate this moment together and commemorate this occasion together in person. So thank you for joining us, those of you who came in person. Thank you to our students who are here to, again, light the candles and lay the cranes and help us with the final part of the ceremony. And thank you for those of you who are joining us online today. Sam, do you want to go on the other side? You're just going to
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, baby boy. I talked to your girl this morning. Your partner in crime. She said the 25th. Who's the other? Tatsenko? No. Facilities. Brought it down there, take it down. That was somebody. How are you? Danny has my keys. Good, good, boss. Good, how are you? You too. No, he didn't leave because he was going to stay for the ceremony. Yeah. To let them in. Oh, I'm good. I don't have to carry anything. Thank you. This one's mine. Thank you so much.
Mitchell, see you on top. Yeah, we're going to the second floor first. Get the keys and we'll meet you up there.